What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 84 of the RXP podcast where three working professionals talk all about their love for movies, TV shows, and video games. My name, of course, is Matt, and today I am joined by Alex.
Hello.
And Tiffany.
Hello! We get to talk about one of my favorite things.
What is your favorite things? Like, what do you
Reminiscing
about?
and nostalgia.
And Mary Poppins.
On the... That's no, Alex. The reference
Sound of
of
Music,
favorite
isn't it?
things is Sound of Music.
Oh my gosh. We got to
Close
start
enough.
this podcast over.
He's not cultured.
Exposed.
It's okay.
Fully exposed.
I love talking about the things we've done.
I know. This honestly is probably my favorite time of the year to record episodes because like the topics come flowing. Like this is recommended experiences. We have limited time and now we get to talk about the things that we actually spent with our limited time.
Yes.
And pumped. I can't wait to hear what's on your guys' list because I feel like I don't know what's going to be on your list. I doubt any of mine will be on your list. And I don't know if any of our list will like go together. Maybe a couple, but I don't know. I feel like this year is like the most we've been segmented. I think it's partly because Tiffany's been like schooling, like I don't know. Maybe there's just some disconnect, but I think we've got three good lists. So to you all who have not been with us, this is what, the third year? Is that right?
Yeah.
Crazy. So every year we have our top 6 recommended experiences gaming, which is not this week. We're not even talking about anything gaming related, pushing it off, kicking it to next week or whenever we get to it. So
you're saying I can't cheat and use one of my slots here for a game that I couldn't put on the game list?
Cheaters
Correct.
never win, Alex.
This isn't a competition,
podcast. So this is the top 6 non-gaming things. This could be music, it could be books, it could be TV shows, movies, comic books, whatever. You went outside and touched some grass. If that's your like top 6 experience, like let's do it. I'm pumped, guys. I've got a little, I always have a lot of movies on my list, I feel like, but otherwise, like I think I've got, some surprises in here. Who wants to go first? We did not talk about this before we recorded, so we'll just talk now.
I'll go
I think
first.
I wanna... Oh,
no,
dang,
me.
okay.
I want to go first.
You can go first.
All right, Alex, do it. What's your top
right.
number 6?
My number 6 experience non-gaming for 2023 is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse.
There we go.
Solid choice.
Great choice.
This was on my list of top anticipated experiences for this year, actually. So it's very well due that it lands on my top 6 non-gaming as well because I was so hyped for it. It lived up to the hype. It might have landed with a little bit of a sputter, right? Because as we find out, it's more of a kind of 2-part type of setup, right, with the third movie coming out who knows when. Obviously with the strikes having also occurred this year, there's been a delay on that, so we're not necessarily getting part 2 next year potentially, but besides that, Cross the Spider-Verse was great. This movie continues to excel in what it did best for me in part 1, or Into the Spider-Verse rather, and that is living up to its animation style, embracing it, giving us visuals that you can only do in an animated setting, right? At least as of now. And it was just a good movie, and I enjoyed it, from start to end.
It's a great movie, and we even did a peer review on it. You should check out that episode.
Yeah, we did. This is one of my honorable mentions. Like we'll save some time for honorable mentions because we want to, like, honestly, the purpose of these top 6 is 1, to like brag about all the things we did, but 2 is to like give the flowers where they're deserved. And honestly, this movie, I might have been a little bit cooler on it, but honestly, this movie and this series, best thing that's coming out of Marvel, hands down. In my opinion, it's the best thing coming, and I am so pumped to see part 2, whether it's 2024 or beyond. Because you're right, Alex. Like this animation style, I I want more of it, but also at the same time, I think that because it's so different, maybe that's what makes it a little bit more special to me, is that there's really nothing else out there. There's so much animated things, whether it's anime or like more Americanized cartoon animation, whatever animation style, this is definitely hitting so many different spots for me.
Agree. Great movie.
Shout out.
Can I
Tiffany.
go next?
Yeah, do it.
So my number 6 experience is a book series that
Ooh.
took the internet by storm, and that is a romantasy, which is a genre that merges romance and fantasy. The book series Fourth Wing and Iron Flame. So Fourth Wing came out in April of this year. Iron Flame came out in November. These 2 books are in a 5-book series that have been optioned by Amazon. In fact, Michael B. Jordan's production studio is going to be making it for Amazon. So holla at that.
Wow,
But
okay.
this book series, like, apparently blew up on TikTok, right? And like I learned about it. I had another friend of the show, you know, read it and start reading the first book in the summertime and say like, Tiffany, you need to read this. And I was like, what do you like? Is it actually that good? And she was like, yes, it's that good. I read the first book in 2 days. Okay. The first book in 2 days. And then when the sequel came out, I went to a midnight release party. I didn't even know they did that anymore for books. The last time I went to a book midnight release party was for one of the Harry Potter books in like the 2000s. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
Dating yourself.
Oh God, I guess you're right. But anyway, so this book series, the second one was good. It wasn't as great as the first one, and I'm gonna be real honest with the both of you. The book did absolutely nothing new. Like, very predictable, but like because it was predictable and like it felt like 5 different young adult fantasy novels merged together, that it was still so it was like comfort food. It had a new coat of paint on it. It was pretty predictable, but like I was still entranced by the story. Characters are pretty good. Second book, I do have to say the main female lead, I wanted to punch her in the throat throughout like the entire book series.
Oh my god.
I was like, what are you doing? You're the worst. Get out of my face. But you know what? I'm gonna be reading books 3, 4, and 5. I'm gonna be watching that TV show when it comes out. I'm gonna be telling you guys to watch that TV show if it's any good. FYI, Fourth Wing, Iron Flame, they're about dragons, and it's about a girl that goes to a school to learn how to ride a freaking dragon, okay? If the dragons aren't at least, like, as... Okay, I don't know that we're gonna get Game of Thrones style dragons, but, like, we need some good dragons. We can't be getting, like...
Aragon level dragons.
Yeah, we can't be getting,
no.
Shrek level dragons, you know what I'm saying? Like, and these dragons are fierce, okay? I mean, respect to Donkey's wife, but like she not it. She ain't it. But yeah, I think the reason why this book series even made my list too is because I also reconnected with a few friends that also read, that got into it. You know, the fact that I went to a midnight release party, the fact that it just brought up a lot of fun feelings. It was a good time, a wild ride, very wild ride, but great time.
Is it more romance or fantasy?
So I'm gonna be real. I'm gonna be honest. Romantasy is literally like a new genre that's been like dubbed by the internet in the last couple years, and like it's really like almost half and half. I feel like it's half and half.
So
a lot of the characters
earning the genre mix up very like well then. That's
yes,
like literally half and half.
Yes, I would think it's half and half. The world building is a little bit shoddy. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I feel like, okay, I guess like part of me is like, am I crazy? Because like I feel like there are arguments to say this book is mid, but like the way that they wrapped it all together and like made moments that are kind of quotable, like it just was, and maybe it's what we needed in 2023, you know? I don't know. Like we needed like people are still actively looking for the next Harry Potter. I'm constantly doing the same. Like I'm looking for the next book series that will bring me in. Love the Hunger Games. I was trying to read the prequel Hunger Games book before the movie came out. Never got to it. But like I remember being that book series really grabbed me, and stuff like that. Twilight, I mean, I'm sorry to say, I was in high school when that first book came out, and I was enthralled by that, I'm just trying to get the feelings back. I'm trying to get the nostalgia of how I felt.
The OG romantasy.
Yeah, for real. So...
Step aside, Dracula or Frankenstein.
Now we got dragons. But yeah, this book, number 6, ask me again in like 3 years when the series is over. I'll let you know if it's actually worth the time. For all I know, if the female main character keeps going in her projected direction, I might next year I might be like the worst thing I've ever read was the 3rd book in this series. So who knows? Stay tuned.
Interesting.
Stay tuned.
So are they wanting to do like one release each year?
So this author,
because they both came out this year.
They both came out this year. The author
May and November.
Powered through
Crazy.
It. Yeah, wild. She's gonna take her time. She's gonna take her time with the next one.
Good.
She has this muscular like ligament disease called Ehlers-Danlos, and it's like a cartilage deficiency, and so she has this physical disability along with most of her children, and she gave the character that disability as well. To give like disability rep for the book series, which was very interesting, especially because you're like this person who has muscles disorder. How is she going to be a dragon rider? So reading about that was pretty cool. But what I'm saying is that she really pushed her body this year to do all the writing, to go on the tour, to do all that jazz. So she's like, I need to take a break. Physically, it's been overwhelming. Yeah. So I think moving forward, she's going to do about 1 book a year.
Okay. Good.
One can only hope. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, this is like, I'm looking at ratings right now on Goodreads. It's like at 4.63, the first book. The second book is still like 4 point something. I only have like 6 friends on Goodreads. 4 of you have rated it a 5 out of 5. So like, I feel like this is the book for my friends. So is this something, knowing me, I love high fantasy. I wouldn't say romance novels are something that is an interest of mine.
Right.
But this new genre, so say like anybody listening at home into fantasy, would you tell them to pick up this book?
That's a good question. I feel like so if someone likes a romance genre, I would say 100% read this. Even if you don't like fantasy, I'd be like, read this. If you like higher fantasy, I don't know that I would be like, read this, because like I said,
maybe it's more romance forward.
Yeah,
and fantasy's really just the setting.
I would say 52% romance, 48% fantasy. That's what I'm going to say.
Narrow margins.
Lock it in. That's kind of where I'm at.
Hey, maybe I'll check it out. Yeah.
Maybe I would feel like I would recommend it maybe to your wife.
Okay.
We're
watching Game of Thrones right now. Like we're on season 5 of Game of Thrones. She's never seen it before. So yeah, that's actually a good point.
Yeah, I think it'd be fun. I mean, okay, I will have to say, I probably will be like, listen, when the show comes out, let's hopes and prayers that this show comes out in the next 2 years.
Yeah.
I want to see what that adaptation is like and be like, yo, check this out. And if you're like, this is actually not bad, then I feel like that you could dive into this. Because the series isn't going to be done. Like, there's no way the book series is going to be done before the show's over.
Okay.
Yeah.
Listen, Amazon is pumping out some money to all these shows. So, like, they've got the money and we've got the time. So let's make this work. Cool. Great. Number 6. My number 6. Taking a turn away from this, back to the small screen, which is on Netflix, a reality show, of course, because I'm all about that trash TV.
Okay.
It's Squid Game: The Challenge.
No way.
Have you all seen this?
No.
Because let me tell you what, we on a whim, we're like, we finished season 4 of Game of Thrones. We're just looking for something, like in between seasons, you're like, do we want to jump into the next season? Do we want to like take a little break? We're traveling around the holidays. Well, let's just pop on this little reality show about Squid Game. We loved that show when it came out. All three of us loved that show, right?
Yeah.
And it's addictive. It is everything I wanted and more. Let me tell you about this. They have 462, 452, a ton of contestants. They all have little ink blots on their, like, under their shirt. So when they get eliminated, they have told all the contestants that ink blot will burst and it'll look like they just got shot, and they're supposed to like pretend to be dead. And that was the premise that I heard about it. Like, that was the one part, and I was like, I just have to see this because that sounds like super cringy but also super hilarious. It is so much fun. It is so much fun. This is like the biggest social construct I've ever seen. They basically give like secret powers to people. They'll just choose you. They'll be like, hey, 118 and 50, come to the kitchen. Those two people will go there and they'll be like, hey, you've gotten the power to eliminate one person or to give someone this random power. And they like fight for a second, but immediately, like, they're anonymous, they can do whatever they want, and they just eliminate people. Like, it is cutthroat, these people, because every person that gets eliminated is $10,000 in the pot. Like, the winner gets $4.56 million or something crazy like that. It is so much fun. It's got most of the games from the show plus a few more. And it is just a wild ride. It is so much fun. It's got a little bit more of American feel because they have like older board games that they have kind of translated into bigger games.
Tell us.
Like
Rock 'em Sock 'em Robots?
No. So basically they have a game of Battleship where they set up people, and if their boats get sunk, everybody on that boat gets eliminated. It doesn't even matter if they win the game. If they get eliminated, they're done. And a lot of these people come in with other people. Like, there's a mom-son combo. There's like best friends. There's sisters. Like, there's all these people. And there's literally, like, if you can think of the moment where they're doing the marble game, where it's like a person and another person that love each other fighting to the death. There's literally that happens that they didn't expect, and it happened, and it was crazy, just high drama, and it will just sink you in. You're just going to be like, next episode.
How many episodes are there?
There are 10, I believe, and they fly by. Let me tell you, like, you can't just watch one because it's always going to end on a cliffhanger, and you're just like, I've got to figure it out. I got to see what the next game is. It is so good. So good. I think it definitely shows kind of like the human condition in all its beauty and awfulness. So
right.
I love it. I honestly, it's, we watch a lot of reality TV because it's just like so entertaining. And it is one of the best.
That's wild to hear that made your top 6. Is it recency bias potentially? I'm just gonna ask the question.
It probably is. Yeah. Because like I wanted to, have some sort of, like, when you look at my list, I want it to be a characteristic of my year.
Right.
We watch Big Brother, we watch Survivor, we watch, a lot of these reality TV shows. And honestly, a lot of them can kind of fall flat of like things that just are done before. Mm-hmm. And when we heard about this Squid Game reality TV show, it was kind of like, could that even work? It just, I don't know if it would work. I remember Alex saying, like, does Squid Game work because it's like from like a South Korean setting? Yeah. And I was like, well, I don't think so. I think it would just work no matter what. And from this, like, all the contestants were from all across the world, and it just worked. It is the weirdest thing of kind of a known commodity that we know and love of a TV show and making it into a reality TV show. I've never seen that kind of like one-to-one nature that's worked so well for both of them. So I would at least give it a watch. Like, I think it is recency bias because I watched it in the last month, but I feel like I've told so many people about this recently. Like, I feel like even if it was the beginning of the year, I would still be talking about it.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. Give it a shout. Give it a shout.
I do like game show. I mean, like, there was a time where I loved The Amazing Race, you know? Like, stuff like that.
Like, if you want to see people kind of, like, backstab as much as possible, like, this is the game. This is the game.
Wow.
I mean, the only question with shows like this, though, is how much of it is, like, directed or not. Because, yes, it's a reality show, but typically all these shows have some sort of level of, like, handling, right, to, like, get these scenarios to occur. So it's, like, I guess it's a level of enjoying it for the fact that it happens, but not necessarily that it was, like, actually real that it happened, you know, because there's always that level of, like, the invisible hand is kind of directing this, and eventually maybe the outcome is random, right? Or it's like, you know, however it may be, but actually getting there isn't as coincidental as it might have been in the first place. So, you know, just going in with reservations every single time you watch a show like that.
Yeah. Like, I definitely hear you. I want you guys just to watch an episode, because the amount of just loose cannons that they put on this, like, of course they're selecting 400 somewhat unhinged people.
Right.
Like,
That's what I'm imagining.
Big personalities. It's very entertaining. Very, very entertaining. All right, Alex. I'm sorry, I probably stole your number 5. Like, it probably is also Squid Game the challenge, but go ahead.
Oh yeah,
go ahead
yeah.
and tell
We
me
could
about
just
it.
move on to number 4 then, right?
No, I'm kidding. Tell me what your number 5 is.
All right, number 5. You know, talk about unhinged people. You know, it's a similar, I guess, I don't want to say genre, but kind of stake, right? Of when you are in this type of thing, you want to see, like, unhinged stuff, or like typically people kind of raise the bar. It's a movie, and it's one I've mentioned in the past, but of course I had to make my list because it definitely stuck with me. And, you know, maybe slight spoilers, it's my favorite movie I've seen this year, and that is Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves.
Let's go. Nice.
You know, Chris Pine, Michelle Rodriguez, Hugh Grant, Justice Smith, amongst, you know, many of the other people that cameoed or appeared. And this is that movie where I typically am not the biggest fantasy guy, you know, stuff like Game of Thrones, maybe Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter. Like, I don't necessarily enjoy, I guess, like, Western fantasy to that degree, right? Like when you have, like, elves, orcs, trolls, that type of stuff. And even though D&D is couched in that type of fantasy, I feel like D&D also has the avenues of possibility of, right, going into the ridiculous, kind of playing up, you know, tropes, right? You know, you have the alignment chart, right, going from chaotic to lawful good, right? And I feel the way they tackle Dungeons and Dragons as a movie did such a great job of kind of going along that diagram and kind of having representation of any type of character you might come across in an actual D&D campaign, whether you watch it or kind of participate. And I enjoyed it because of how fun it was, because of that fact, right? Like, it's very kind of low stakes. Obviously, they play up the drama, and there's, like, backstabs, betrayals, you know, star-crossed lovers, all that good stuff. But it comes down to being like, oh, this is a D&D this could be an actual D&D campaign that you experience yourself, right? If you love this movie that much, you could have that same experience with you and your group of friends. And on top of that, it gives me hope to say if they want to continue kind of this series of Dungeons and Dragons movies, like, they can continue it, and they don't have to be connected. Like, this can be that type of, like, anthology type series where you have the framework of D&D, but it's not necessarily sequels to each other. Yes, characters can reappear, right? Like, maybe it's the same world, or you can have completely different campaigns, different setting, different characters. And I feel like it could be that next kind of big thing where also maybe they can go different tones, right? It doesn't have to necessarily just be comedic. It could be more serious, like a kind of more true-blooded fantasy type story. And so I think the premise has such a good, flexible framework that I enjoyed this so much. Like, I want them to continue to make more Dungeons and Dragons style movies. Whether or not the actors return, you know, that's up to their choice, but I'm fine with either. Maybe brand new blank slate cast would be great as well.
I definitely agree that this makes one of my honorable mentions. Like, it was a great movie, and I'm always like, oh, I need to watch it again. I need to watch it again. Spoilers for me. Jonathan, no movie made my list this year. Mainly because it felt like nothing really grabbed me enough to watch it like more than 2 times. Do you know what I mean? Or like the thing that I
that's fair.
thought about the movie again, or like it made me think about it. Like, you know, there were movies that made me think for like a week around when it came out, but then like I kind of never thought about it again. But Dungeons and Dragons was so fun. I really enjoyed that, and I'm always like, oh yeah, I should just watch that again.
Yeah, no, I think this was a great movie. I really enjoyed it. I honestly think it's probably the best effects that I've seen all year. I think that the magic in that movie was the most impressive that I've seen out of anything from Marvel, anything from anything else. Like any other property, I would take these effects and put them over it. I just thought, like, I could see a fantasy video game, which is like where my mind immediately goes, that those are the effects that they would want to show on the screen. And they made it much more interactive in the sense of like a rock hand that's literally fighting against another like witch's hand in the midair. Like, the people that have seen this movie, you know exactly what scene I'm talking about. That was so impressive.
We probably should have prefaced this at the very beginning, you know, minor to slight to major spoilers potentially for anything we mention. You know, like, obviously we won't intentionally do it, but if it probably lends to the reason as to why I made our top experience, there might be some sort of, you know, in-depth conversation. So we'll probably have to couch that or patch it in, or maybe just in the timestamps or in description.
Yeah, just put in the timestamps.
Yeah, we'll have a warning.
I feel like, so can we just go full spoilers then for all these things? Because there are certain aspects of this movie that I think makes it into a great movie this year for me.
Yeah, let's do spoilers.
2 things.
All right.
Two things.
We can patch it in. We'll like patch it in later and then put in the description just to make sure people are warned.
I don't know why you need to announce that you're going to patch it in later, because we're just going to put in the description. They're already on this
It's beyond the curtain.
All right. It's patched.
Michelle Rodriguez, Chris Pine, I loved that they did not love each other romantically. Like, I enjoyed
100%.
having like a man and a woman in the
platonic
first,
life friends
in 2 roles, and they're just friends. They are just they are basically just pals, and I love that.
It's because their Michelle's into short kings, you know.
And that's very short
true. That's true.
And I honestly think that them using the redemption stone on Michelle Rodriguez's character in the end, like, that was the way that should have ended. If they would have left her dead and then brought back a wife that we had no connection to that entire time, like, I felt like it like had such a deeper meaning of like what it means to have a family. Like, it does not need to be like a mom. And I'm not saying like screw her mom, you know, she died, but like, I'm not saying anything like that. Like, but like, Michelle Rodriguez kind of filled that role, and I feel like his daughter, that was the right move. And like, I love that ending. I honestly think it was one of the best endings that I've seen that's like stuck with me. Like, I've thought about that ending after it. I've not thought about the whole movie. Like, I agree with you, Tiffany. My 10 out of 10 movies, I only give a 5 out of 5 on Letterboxd if it's one of those movies that I think about all the time, and I've not been able to give that this year. Like, I have a ton of 9s, but that 10 out of 10, very elusive. But that ending, chef's kiss, so good.
That's so funny. Like, for Letterboxd and Goodreads, I will 5 out of 5 them. I'll round up. Letterboxd actually does let you do half a star, which is honestly like really helpful to me.
So
Goodreads,
nice.
You can't. So there are some caveats where I'm like, this is really a 4.5, but I'm just gonna give it a 5 on Goodreads. But I gave a lot of movies 5s this year, but in my heart, I didn't think about it again. So
it's
maybe
like when you clear like a platformer and you get like 3 stars out of 3 stars, but you don't find
like,
that secret
and
ending.
you're like, I can break a board in half. I feel
that
great.
Secret ending puts like an S over top of it. You're just waiting for the S. Yeah.
Yeah.
I get you. Great movie. Tiffany, What's your number 5?
So my number 5 is an actual real life experience where I went to go touch grass.
Touching grass.
And this is just a shout out endorsement. I went to 2 board game conventions this year, but
Nice.
one overtook the other.
Where
And
were
so
they?
My number 5. I went to Gen Con, which is in Indianapolis, and I went to PAX Unplugged, which is in Philadelphia. And my number 5 experience is PAX Unplugged.
Okay,
So,
cool.
PAX Unplugged is a board game convention that is organized by Penny Arcade, which does PAX West, PAX East. Now the defunct PAX South, I think. I think that one no longer exists. But, mostly video games. But PAX Unplugged has been around since like 2017, 2018. I went to the inaugural one and had a really great time. Definitely a smaller convention compared to Gen Con, which is the biggest North American board game convention in America. Well, I just said that. Wait, North American Board Game Convention. Gen Con's the biggest one. So huge, tons of people, lots of space, etc. But PAX Unplugged is just, it's like big enough. There were some vendors that were missing that I was very disappointed about. But I feel like they kind of alternate maybe each year. That just kind of depends. It just wasn't in the cards. Or maybe, haha, pun intended. Or they just didn't have a big release for the year, so they didn't come. But overall, like, I had a great time. It helped too that this year my friends and I managed to get a hotel room right next to the convention center. So there was very little commute. And I got to meet a friend in real life for the first time at PAX Unplugged. Shout out to Keith. Friend of the show. Yep.
Nice.
Yeah, so 3 days of fun. Gen Con is 4 days. So that's another thing. Like, maybe it's too much if it's that extra day. It kind of makes a difference almost for a convention.
So I've been to different conventions, never been to a board game convention. Say I came with you. What type of thing would we be doing? Do we just play board games, or what's that look like?
So we would walk the vendor floor, and we would they have demo tables set up, which is really cool. So you can, half the game, not half. I feel like a third of the games that we saw, they're like, oh, we're going to put this on Kickstarter in the spring, or, oh, this isn't made yet. Oh, this is a prototype. But you kind of demo some games. They have a board game library, which is free at PAX Unplugged, which is really nice, where they have over like hundreds and hundreds of board games available for you to just kind of check out, like literally like a library to play in the hall. And so you can go and like go through the, whatever stacks they have available, pick one up, scan out your badge, play the game, hour or two, bada bing, bada boom, go return it, get another one. If you're going with friends, you and your friends can each get one. So sometimes you can squat.
Ooh, nice.
Like, we go in, we each get one board game. So then we come back with like 3 board games. We sit and like play for like 6 hours, turn it in, all that jazz. I really like the ability to just check out the new stuff, see what's around. I also really like the ability to test out board games in the board game library so that, do I really want to buy this game? You know what I mean? Like, theoretically, I'm like, that sounds like a perfect game. And then I play it and I'm like, I never want to play this again.
Right.
Like, or like, I don't need this. Like, or there's another game that does this better. I don't care. So it's just really fun. Like, like, and it's low key and like, Philadelphia.
He doesn't
pretty
know
cool.
because he's never been. He just said
okay.
that.
I know. Tell me how fun it is. How big are these conventions? Like, how many people are showing out for this?
Gen Con is like 80,000 people or something.
Sheesh.
I
was not expecting 80,000.
No, I might be over embellishing. Let me check really quick. I do have to say PAX Unplugged is astronomically smaller.
Smaller, okay.
Yeah. So Gen Con attendees. Let's see here.
Alex, did you go to any of these?
Google says.
Yeah, I went to both.
Oh, nice.
And so I guess I'll just couch it here because it'll just be easier. This is my number 2 experience of the year. So jumping that high up. And I don't pick one over the other, even though I went to both as well. But for me, the reason they rose to the number 2 spot is that it really was an eye opener to say, in my lifetime, in my hobbies, I really couch myself in being more of the video game side, right? So the digital games rather than the physical games. And so having been to other conventions, right, related to video games, you know, PAX West, E3, PlayStation Experience, that, you know, you kind of get the feeling, right? You don't really understand, I guess, how widespread these hobbies are until you kind of go to these conventions, right? And you get to see everyone that's coming or that's willing to, you know, to invest the time and money to go to these things. And so because board games are so distant from me in terms of my experience and kind of involvement, until I went to these board game conventions this year, I didn't really understand how widespread it was. And it was just nice to see kind of, right, it runs the gamut. You know, you have people with children, right, these babies that are just like learning how to read and write, you know, or getting into board games, and you have these like grandparents who are maybe pushing like 60,
Yes.
70 years old that are still coming out to these things because of how much they love board games. And so it's just nice to see that wide range of how obviously board games can be designed for everybody, right? There's board games of different types for different age groups, and it was just nice to see that. And it's just, right, similar to most hobbies where you just have these conventions where you get people to come together, you get to interact not just with other patrons, but right with the vendors. So a lot of the times the designers themselves of these games are there, you know, kind of advertising their games, and so you can talk to them, and in some cases maybe kind of pick their brain, or they ask you, you know, for your input so they can pick your brain and maybe have improvements. There was one game that we played in particular called Scribble Me This, which is this kind of like combination Pictionary riddle combination crossover. And the vendor, one of the designers was there, you know, demonstrating the game for us, and he asked us a lot of input, you know, just to be like, you know, we have these, I guess, problems with the design, or kind of people have raised these questions. I just wanted your guys' thoughts because I have thoughts of my own, but since you just demoed it, you know, what do you think? And it was nice to kind of be a part of that creative process. Obviously, we won't be cited on any sort of booklets for making the game, but it was nice to be able to kind of give them that feedback directly, right? To have that, you know, direct line of communication.
And to piggyback off that experience, so legitimately we were in line to buy merchandise, as one does, and that designer literally just walked up to us and was like, "Hey, do you like riddles?" And we just turned around and we're like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Here you go. And here's a free game. Check out my booth." And we were like, "Okay." And he literally handed us a small game that we still have yet to open, and then like 3 riddle cards. And like, he's like, you know, "Come by the booth to see if your answer's right." And he literally walked away. And so, I mean, I looked at him, I was like, "Dude, I love riddles." And he's like, "Okay, cool." So then he's gone, and we're like in the line standing there waiting to buy our merchandise. And we're like each like looking at our riddle cards and trying to figure it out. And so at the end of that day, or the end of the convention day, we go to the booth to be like, "Let's check it out to see if our answers are right." And we go there and we like see the game, and it looks kind of cool. They tell us the premise, and we're like, "Oh, is our riddles correct?" And we give them the answers, like, "Okay, yeah, that's right. Oh, the actual answer wasn't the beach, it was surfing." And we were like, "Oh." And then, you know, I looked at him, I was like, "Can we demo your game?" And he said, I mean, like, basically they were closing up. They're like, "Oh, we need more than just 10 minutes because the hall was going to close in 10 minutes. It's like, stop by tomorrow." And I was like, "Okay, we're coming back tomorrow." And then he was like, "Okay." So then the next day we show up. I was like, and then he was like, "Oh,
are
you guys
threatening me?"
And he was like, "Oh, you guys were serious?" And we're like, "Yeah, let's play this game." Great game. Matt, this game, so basically the premise is that you get a card, and on one side there's a word, and on the other side there's a riddle. When you get handed your original card, you just see the word, you Pictionary that. You're given like a whiteboard, you draw the thing on there, right? Like if it says pig, you draw a pig. If it says like stairs, you draw stairs. And then what you do is that you put the cards back, you kind of hide the card that you just had, and you put it back in this like little pocket thing. And then what happens is that when everyone's done drawing their cards, you throw your drawings in the middle of the room, in the middle of the table, and then one person takes all the cards, flips it to the other side, shuffles them, and then basically reads the riddle. and then you have to guess which drawing is the answer to that riddle.
Okay.
And some people don't even know if, let's say I drew a pig and all these riddles came out and I was like, which one was the answer the pig? Like, some people were like, I don't even know what the answer to my own riddle was. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you get points at the end. And you get points for drawing, like, you get points for people guessing your drawing correctly, and then you get points for guessing the others correctly.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
So it's kind of, what is that like? It's like,
It's not really telestrations, but
it's
like
similar to telestrations as far as like
drawing
point
and
system
guessing.
and drawing. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah,
That
but
sounds awesome. Is
it
that
was
early
really
access or?
that was early access. He's like,
Okay.
coming out on Kickstarter in the spring. Please get on our email listserv, check it out. And I was like, listen, the artwork of the box looked professional. Like, I was like, they put some money into this, definitely. And like, I can 100%, I'm gonna be honest, unless they totally screw it up, they have to be in Target by next year. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
Like, this
Call your
game
shot.
could totally be in Target, could totally
What's the name
be
of
in
this
Barnes
game
and Noble.
again?
Scribble Me This. And that's a great name.
Nice.
Like,
That's
riddle
perfect.
me this. Can you
Yeah.
believe? Like,
Yep.
mwah.
Yeah.
That was
That's
just
awesome.
one of the moments, Matt. Like, great time. Again, at both conventions, but PAX Unplugged was a little bit more special, it felt like.
Cool. That's awesome. Now I kind of want to go to one of these board game conventions, which I need to start working through some of the board games that you've gifted us recently. I need to
Listen.
actually work through them before I go to a board
I'm
game
also
convention.
happy to teach more. I
Listen.
one time at PAX Unplugged, I promise this is the last story for me, but in 2019,
Mhm.
literally one of the vendors like gave me his card and was like, we pay people to demo games. Like, if you want to be one
That
of
sounds like the
our
most
people-
Tiffany game I'm sorry, the most Tiffany job I've ever heard in my entire life.
He literally was like, here's my card, next year if you want to like demo for us or whatever. I mean, we hire people to like do this,
So
with
this
us,
wasn't your first year doing PAX
PAX
Unplugged and all
It
these
is
things?
not. This is my
Okay.
third time.
Okay.
It's my third time.
Cool.
A
And,
veteran.
and
Veteran.
I want to go back.
Sweet. Next year it is.
Yep.
All right. My fifth. The funny thing about this fifth one is that this recommended experience was actually a recommended experience from last year from one of my co-hosts. It is Project Hail Mary, which was one of Tiffany's recommended experiences. It was a goal of mine to read 12 books this year. I'm historically not a reader, but I wanted to talk
What's
about my
reading?
reading journey. I know.
Yeah.
Who knew? That's what those words were for. Andy Weir, who did The Martian, which I also read this year. Project Hail Mary is one of those books, kind of like the movies that I was talking about. A book that I still think about to this day. Like, I still think
Yes.
about that story. I was emotional from reading that.
Mhm.
And I was immediately thinking, I can't wait for this movie to come out. Like, I just cannot wait to see it on the big screen. Ryan Gosling is going to play
Kill it.
the main protagonist.
Yeah.
I was like, this guy's really jokey. Ryan Gosling, he's kind of like funny, kind
Mhm.
of. He's kind of
Mhm.
funny. Like, maybe not exactly what I think about for Ryan Gosling. But then Barbie came out, and I was like, well, there goes all those, worries.
Preconceived
Like,
notions.
he's
Yeah.
like, he's gonna like, I'm just Ken, like the entire time. Like, he's just gonna sing and do whatever and be like amazing. It was amazing. The book was so good. I'm so glad you recommended it, because best book of the year. It was one of the first books that I read this year. Might have been even the first book I read, and nothing has gone back
Compared.
to it. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
But be honest, most of my Goodreads, like 4s or 5s. Like, there's nothing less than a 4, because I don't read very much. So I've like compiled all these great recommendations from you and from other friends. And so I'm
Only
reading.
bangers.
Yeah, these are straight bangers. And what I found out, like, I am big into movies, big into movies. the majority of the rest of my list are movies, just so you guys know. So we balance each other out, Tiffany.
Perfect.
What I found out is that a majority of these movies that are coming out are based on books. And a majority of these books that are coming out are being auctioned off
into
to
movies.
all these big companies to become movies. And I am just blown away by that fact. Majority of the books that I read this year either have become movies or are going to become movies. I read 2 of the Dune books. I read No Country for Old Men, which was amazing. I watched The Martian. I read Project Hail Mary. Like, there is so many of these movie tie-in books that are just everywhere, and it makes me think that reading is going to be like a bigger hobby for me going forward. Like, I may not meet my 12 book goal. I've got 9. We'll see if I can, churn one more out before the end of the year. But like, this is definitely something that I want to keep doing because I think it makes me appreciate movies more, something that I'm very passionate about. So yeah, thanks, Tiffany. Thanks for recommending it.
That makes me
it's
so
amazing.
happy. Yeah. So did you not watch The Martian before? Like you
I did.
read and
Sorry.
Oh, you have.
I watched The Martian. I think I said I watched The Martian, but I read The Martian this year.
Oh, okay, but you had seen the movie before you read.
I had.
Okay, but still, Martian, great book, like and great movie. But both. I do have to say, so Fourth Wing and Iron Flame made my list this year, but it's not at the passion that I have for Project Hail Mary, and I can like 100% wholeheartedly say that Project Hail Mary was the best book I read in 2022. Yeah. And this year alone, I've gifted that book to 2 people because I'm like, this is the best book I've read in the last couple years. I don't have a book like that this year. That spoiler.
Gotcha.
A book is not my number one, but
interesting.
I'm so happy that you read it and enjoyed it.
Yeah. If you're into science fiction, I was talking to the person that cuts my hair, and she's into books, like really into books. And I was telling her about it. She said she tried, but she was like, nope, too sciencey. Like not something that I want to. Because he literally goes through the scientific method.
Yes.
Like he's like, I have a conundrum. I'm going to die. I need to figure this out. And he starts doing the scientific method. And for me, who like my undergrad was in biochemistry, like I wanted to be a chemistry teacher in high school. Like this was just like almost resetting some of the factory settings like that I've gotten to now, where it's like, I haven't thought about like the scientific method, like, because that's, I'm not just a scientist. Like I work in the medical field, but like not just a straight up scientist, like figuring out hypotheses and testing it. Man, it is just, it tickles that side of my brain, and I loved it. I loved it because you're also seeing in The Martian too. Like, I am a huge fan of, is it Andy Weir?
I've been saying
Andy Weir.
But, but I don't actually know.
However you pronounce his name, doesn't matter, because it's amazing. Like he is just a gift. So I can't wait to see what he does next. Highly, highly recommend. All right, Alex, number 4.
Number 4, speaking of adaptations, this is another kind of adaptation. And I guess it's not just this one thing, but it's the experience as a whole. So my number 4 is Broadway. And by Broadway, I mean musicals, plays. So this year was the first year I went to 2 musicals this year. First time I've ever seen shows on Broadway in New York City. But more specifically, what kind of makes it for me is that one of the musicals Tiffany and I saw this year was the Back to the Future musical. So it debuted this year on Broadway in the Winter Garden Theater, and it is an adaptation of the first movie, so only the first one. We don't go into parts 2 or 3. And Back to the Future, the franchise being one of my favorite movie franchises of all time, it was great to be able to see a musical version of it. And also with how they adapted it, with being, basically 90% of the same, right? There are some scenes that they had to fill in that I guess connected more being a musical / play representation, and there were some songs / events that don't happen in the movie, but they wanted to have some creative fun, so there were some new scenes made just for the musical. But not having been to any musicals prior to this, it really opened my eyes to seeing the attraction, right, of the kind of power of a musical, and how, right, live performance in that way is so different from like a TV show or movie, right, where you have these actors, you have the magic of editing, and there are these kind of like layers of saying, right, the actors can try as many times as they would like, or the director can tell the actors to take as many takes as they would like, and then as well as kind of hiding the imperfections, right, through the magic of editing, but then seeing something live and having to basically nail it on the first take, right, there's a lot of respect there, to make sure that these are professionals. They know what they're doing, right? They're hitting the notes when they're singing. They're landing the dance moves. There's no accidental falls or props on the stage, going haywire inadvertently. And it was just a great time, and like being able to experience it and just seeing their take, right, especially with the non-canon stuff in terms of like the new original content they made. It was a fun take. It wasn't like, oh, I didn't like it because it wasn't just the movie adapted one-to-one, but it was better because obviously I know the movie. I've seen it several times, right? And I rarely watch movies more than once. And so being able to see all the notes of saying, oh yeah, this is from that part, or this is specifically referencing this other thing, but then having these surprises of like, man, we just came from intermission and this is the song that they choose to do, which is brand new, right? And me being surprised of like, I don't know, like obviously this wasn't in the movie, but this was such a great kind of, okay, we just came off of intermission. Maybe you've like kind of lost yourself a bit, right? You're taking a break, but then you just get drawn right back in because the song just goes that hard, and it's just like a fun tune. So, yeah, Broadway in general. So I recommend it, pick the ones. Maybe there's like a traveling show you can go to if you can't make it out to New York City, but I definitely recommend kind of like live musical / plays in that regard, because it definitely opened my eyes to why people, a lot of people, right? One of our cousins is huge into plays. He goes to plays maybe on like a weekly basis even. And so I kind of understand that feeling even more so now.
Yeah. And we have one more Broadway show before the year's over. We're going to see Frozen.
Nice.
They're going to be local. So we're excited for that.
Cool.
That's next week.
I watched Broadway on tour this year. They did Hamilton. I saw that. I traveled out across the state to see it. Awesome. Really, really good.
Yeah.
Which I know,
phenomenal.
like, Hamilton, like, the zeitgeist has, like, eased a little bit, but we've, like, been wanting to, like, see it and, like, hear that music live, and it's just
100%
still
worth it.
so
a banger.
good. Still so good. Still, the tickets sold out within, like, 30 minutes. Like, so, like, I don't know if the zeitgeist is still, like, completely gone, but it was such a good experience. Love it. I
do have to say one thing that was kind of a bummer is that both of our weekends that we went to Broadway, we each had a show booked each weekend that ended up being canceled.
Oh, really?
So so basically, guys, support Broadway and support the artists. Like, go see the show. Yeah. The shows that we wanted to see basically had to close down due to like lack of bookings.
Really? Okay.
Yes.
Were they both in New York City?
Yes, they were both in New York City. So we were traveling, and we were like, well, guess that's it.
Time to pivot.
We gotta pivot. Still a great time with the shows that we did see.
Cool. Tiffany, number 4.
So number 4 is something that all three of us have experienced this year. And my number 4 is the Loki season 2.
Okay.
I love that show. It was the best. It's the best show. Loki, the show, is the best Marvel show, hands down. Like, I used to kind of battle with WandaVision a little bit, but season 2 really kind of put it over the edge for me for best Marvel production. I mean, I would argue that it's the best Marvel production this year. I mean, maybe not against Across the Spider-Verse, but whatever. Neither here nor there. Season 2 gave a very nice... Spoilers! I'm going to talk about spoilers! Nice ending to Loki. I really hope we see him again. I don't know that we will, but I really liked the introduction of the new characters this season. I like the closure of Loki's story. I know I said spoilers, but I almost don't even really want to do that deep of a spoilers for this one, unless you guys want to get into it. But I think it was just a great journey for him, and I really enjoyed it. And that's why this is my number 4 recommended experience.
And when I thought that Kevin Feige couldn't get more impressive, he started working with this multiverse. He started with Loki. Now he has Loki 2. And then Jonathan Majors is found guilty of assault. And they're like, perfect. We basically wrote this in the script. Like, we are just retconning this entire situation and pivoting from him, which really sucks because I think he was awesome, which also, like, he had some issues, which is not awesome, but I think he was great in that role. But I think this is good. Like, at least maybe they can pivot to maybe another story that is like the next big bad, and maybe it's not Kang, and that's okay, because I think Loki season 2 was a great end to the Kang story as well. Like, I think in my mind that puts it in a bow to where they don't really need to explain anything else. Like, in my mind, you know, I still haven't seen the Marvels, which is probably the longest I've been without seeing the newest Marvel movie. So that might be a sign of the times for me. But I think this is perfect. I think that season is recommended watching. Like, I looked back at some of these Disney Plus shows. I have a hard time telling someone that they need to watch all of them. Honestly, watch a YouTube video that says, like, hey, Captain America is not Captain America that you thought you knew anymore. Like, he gave the shield to someone else. But, like, Loki season 1 and season 2, not only should they be watched, you should want to watch them. They're just good TV. Like, honestly, I watched Loki season 2 on a plane. So 6 straight hours I was going from LA to Charlotte, and 6 hours, watched all 6 episodes in a row, didn't sleep. Fantastic. Like, it was just amazing. It filled that time so well, and I was just like wanting to get to the next episode. It's definitely an honorable mention for me. It did not make my top 6, but it definitely got close because it is definitely easily the best thing that Marvel has put out in a long time. Outside of Across the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, same caveat.
And it does fill in nicely with it being 6 episodes, at least season 2.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it feels like maybe some shows go on like a little bit longer. Or it's like, oh, this could have ended in 6 episodes or less. And it feels like they're just doing more for the sake of doing more, but not necessarily having the content to like fill it out all the way. So me too, being able to just write easily. It took me over 2 different days, but in a weekend, right, to be able to just watch it and be done with it, but also have a good time, right? Shout outs to Owen Wilson, Mobius, the GOAT, the GOAT character. That is just so easy to get through. And I think for me, not watching a lot of TV, or TV is not really like in my primary kind of priority list of I'm going to watch something, that the shorter it is and also the better it is, like the more easily I'll be able to kind of like sit down, get through it, knock it out, and move on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Fantastic. Love Loki. I also have a TV show for my number 4. Talking about adaptations, talking about a TV show, my number 4 is The Last of Us.
Nice.
I almost forgot that this came out in 2023. I'll be honest with you guys. I searched this morning, like, what TV shows came out in 2023, because I felt like this is like the longest and shortest year of my life.
Yeah.
And I was like, really? The Last of Us was in 2022? And I had to just make sure, but it was January 15th, 2023. So just made it, and it was amazing. The best adaptation that's happened. Like, Game Awards confirmed it. Great great show. I don't really have a lot to say about it because I just think for me, who I've never played The Last of Us Part 2, which I plan to play within the next couple months, because Last of Us Part 2 remaster, remake, reskin, resell,
Recharge.
whatever it's going to be called.
Yeah.
Revengeance, redemption. It comes out soon, so I want to play these finally. But I was a little bit worried, like, maybe this just won't hit so well for me. And I was completely engrossed. Maddie loved it. Like, we both just, like, dove into it. And she's not a gamer, not planning to be a gamer. Like, it is just, like, it was just a good TV show. So this is honestly where I hope video game adaptations go from here. Like, you look at, like, Michael Fassbender in Assassin's Creed, and it's almost like it has a caveat next to it. And it's like, video game movie, sorry, like, I'm so sorry you have to watch this, but it's about a video game. This is what it could be, which Last of Us also is probably a much better story than some of these other games, but an adaptation doesn't have to be a downgrade, and that's what I loved about it. And I think they were, like, super skillful in how they shot everything and who portrayed all these characters, that I'm pumped. I'm pumped to play the game and to see season 2, which hopefully comes out sooner than later.
It's probably another, like, it's probably 2025.
Probably.
I also really enjoyed The Last of Us. I watched it with two friends, one of whom was familiar with the video game, and his fiance was not. But we both, and, like, I knew the story, but I've never played the video games. Don't really plan on it. I'm not big into stealth, but I really enjoyed the adaptation as well. I thought it was fantastic. Really liked it a lot.
I'm happy that they were able to pretty much, it's like 95% adapt the story directly from the game into the show. And it goes to show, right, like, video game stories aren't just, like, for children. It feels like kind of there's a stigma with games or for kids, they're not serious. But there are stories out there like The Last of Us that if you just take the story wholesale, which they really didn't cut anything out, they, like, added stuff that wasn't in the game, but everything else that was in the game was there. These are great, amazing stories, right? That have depth of character, that have character growth, and that have kind of, like, touching, wrenching moments, right? And I would say that the only thing you're really missing is that, right, with games being interactive, there are key moments that feel less tense because you're just watching it. And so stuff like, and I'll just say it generally, but obviously the ending kind of choice that Joel makes, the stuff with Henry and Sam, right? Like, when you're playing it, when you're on the sticks, it is so much more impactful, right? Because it's you progressing it. Like, you have to do this, right? Like, in the show, you see what Joel does, but in the game, even though it's Joel doing the thing, you have to commit the act, right? Like, you're causing the story to move forward. And so there's a level of impact that is slightly removed, which right, is just the nature of the medium. You can't translate that. It's impossible. But at the same time, it also goes to show, right, that's just the story itself is so powerful. And honestly, with part 2, it is definitely going to be interesting to see the audience's reaction, because I know a lot of people have become attached to these characters that appear. Even Tess, right, who only appears for the first couple episodes, a lot of people loved her. And there's a lot more characters, right, that you come and go in the franchise, and especially in part 2, there's a lot more characters you're introduced to, and alongside that, a lot more characters you're gonna have to let go of, just due to the nature of what The Last of Us is. And so I'm interested to see kind of the more general public's reaction, because I think part 2 pushes the boundaries even farther than what you think if you thought part 1 kind of pushed it, especially with the ending. And so I'm really excited for it. It didn't make my top 6, but it is definitely a honorable mention because of just how good it was, and the fact that, right, this game originally came out in 2013. And so this is a decade later, right? So the fact that a story of this caliber came out that long ago, there's so many games out there with incredible stories that also hopefully can see translation or adaptation to kind of the small screen or even the silver screen, using The Last of Us HBO series as a kind of way, or was it like the waymarker, keystone, whatever you want to say, as the guiding light to say, if we want to adapt this, this is how we should do it, right? Be true to the story, be true to the canon source material, because if it is a good story, like the audience will like it because, gamers loved it when it first came out.
Well said. Well said. So moving right back to you, Alex. Number 3. Top 3 experiences now. Number 3. What
creme
you
de
got?
la creme.
Number 3. Okay, so this isn't the adaptation, because I was going to segue it to be like, oh, speaking of adaptations. But it's not the adaptation, but it is the source. And I guess technically it is an adaptation. It's both the source, though. Anyway, it's One Piece, the anime. So I'm not talking about the live action series that came out because I have still yet to watch it. But
Same.
in the very beginning of 2023, my January 2023 was basically One Piece, the anime. I watched 400 episodes of the anime. That's all I watched of One Piece actually in 2023 so far. So my January was it. I haven't watched any more since. I went all the way from I forget the name of the arc, but basically when they meet Brook, when Brook gets added to the crew, all the way up through the end of Dressrosa. And so that's kind of like what I covered. That's a lot of content, a lot of major plot points. Oh, Thriller Bark. Yes,
Thriller
Matt.
Bark, yeah.
Yes, Thriller Bark. Thank you for that. Thriller Bark arc through the and Nakama through the end of Dressrosa. And I want to say this, having watched some of One Piece back during college, right, the first 300 or so episodes, and kind of like understanding, this is one of those legendary animes, right, mangas out there that has been going on for decades. We're probably by the time this ends, it's going to be like 3 decades worth of storytelling coming to in a final culmination. But going through it, and mostly also being motivated by the fact that I wanted to play the RPG that came out in January, and using that as a motivation to go through it showed me, having watched the episodes, why people love it so much, because it's just a good show. Like, this is your quintessential bonds. You have your main character who's basically lawful good. He's out there to help everyone and anybody that comes across his path, yet he still has his sole mission in life, right, to find the One Piece, to become the king of pirates. And he's doing this, and right, just with his natural charisma, finding these people, forming his crew, making friends. Nakama, as Matt said, shout out to all Nakamas out there, that or Tomodachis. I don't know. I feel like, what's the difference? I think because Tomodachi is also friend, but then they use Nakama in One Piece. I don't know what the difference is, but anyway, friends. And being able to go through it and enjoy it as much as I did, despite the fact that it's been so long, and to be able to not be spoiled, right? Because obviously, even though it's been out for so long, and spoilers are out there, but it's not really something you can't spoil because so much happens. Like, even within these smaller arcs, you're going on these like lifetime journeys with some of these characters, it feels like, where so much happens to them, so much growth, and it's just such a great journey. And the fact that they are able to have adapted to it in a live action on Netflix and expose it to more people, I hope those people who did enjoy the live action version go out, read the manga, or watch the anime, because it's that story, but obviously a lot more, is filled in, right? Because they probably had to take some conveniences just to kind of shorten the arcs. Otherwise, it'd probably be also 30 years of live action recording to get through it, and God knows those actors aren't gonna stay their ages forever. So yeah, it's my number 3. I'm happy, excited to continue the journey. Who knows, maybe my January 2024 is gonna be another 400 episodes. Maybe I'll just catch up to the current airing, so I'm not necessarily I'll be watching it week to week, but maybe that's just my now January of every year. I just go through a bunch of One Piece. But definitely have no regrets this year.
Did you hear the news that they're remaking One Piece, the anime? They're literally
but they're remaking like one particular arc, right? It's not like all of it, I think.
Well, it's like the beginning. I'm pretty sure they're like
Or
starting with
it's
the Romance
or
of the
it's the
Dawn.
East Blue. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
they're remaking East Blue arc. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And I'm like, it's not even done and they're already starting the remake. Like, this is just wild. I mean, I think you're right.
I mean, as a shout out too, it's so interesting to have watched that many episodes because more than ever, you can see the evolution of the anime industry in One Piece because it's been going on so long, right? Like One Piece started as being fully hand drawn and animated, and watching it slowly transition and adopt more kind of like computer animation techniques. It's also just an interesting case study to see the growth of that industry because it's like, oh, look, a lot of these colors are flat, kind of dull right in the beginning, but then as you get more and more into it, the colors get brighter, the kind of effects and animation gets a little bit more complicated, right? Because now with computer assisted techniques, they're able to do a little bit more. And so it's definitely cool to see that evolution because I feel like a lot of things with how slowly technology grows, right? You don't get to see that all in kind of one IP, but I feel like because One Piece has lasted for almost 30 years now, you get to see kind of that whole evolution, and that in and of itself is also really cool to see.
That's so cool. And you know what's really funny that you said that the anime is your number 3 recommended experience? My number 3 recommended experience is the One Piece live action.
There we go.
Like, this show really it really captured my attention. I've rewatched like several of the episodes multiple times. Like, I basically was like, I need to play Marvel Snap. I guess I want to throw something on the TV. Let me just throw on the live action again. Like, I've technically think I've watched this show twice at this point, by watching it once and then going through and then watching it again through like just throwing up on the TV. I loved it. I loved it. I wholeheartedly recommend it. I did speak to someone, one of my close friends loves One Piece. She thought the show was okay. Another friend loves the anime and manga, didn't like the show at all. So I'm very curious what you two think. Like, I'm gonna be completely honest. And I actually have so in addition to the one friend that loves the anime and thought it was okay, I have another friend that also corroborated that feeling. I know a lot of people that love One Piece apparently, which like I didn't realize.
It's so good.
It's one of the goats.
I guess.
Up there with Dragon Ball.
I've adored the live action. Like, I thought it was so fantastic. Like, I've already gushed about it before, but this is my number 3. Go watch it. I really want you guys to watch it.
Okay, I need to watch it. It's definitely on my list.
I feel like you could even watch it with Maddie. Like, for someone who doesn't know anything, like, did she like Pirates of the Caribbean?
Yeah.
Like, did you like the movie? Yeah, fun pirate adventure with goofy, like, young adults. Like, it's a good time. It's a great time.
They're basically the same.
Yeah.
They're basically the same.
Yeah.
Funny you guys both said something about One Piece because, sorry, I have no transition. It has nothing to do with any of this.
I thought you were about to say my number 3 is also One Piece.
Yeah, it's the One Piece RPG.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. Still working on it. So, my number 3, taking a little bit step away. We're finally getting to the movie portion of my list. So, the rest of them from here on out are all movies. So, just
spoilers.
Bear with me. So, number 3, this is probably, I don't know. I feel like people might throw things because this isn't a number 1, because I feel like a lot of people think this is going to like sweep the Oscars this year. But my number 3 is Martin Scorsese's new film Killers of the Flower Moon, which if you guys want to watch it,
is that the 5-hour movie?
It's 3.5 hours, so just think about all those One Piece episodes you could be watching instead, but it is worth it. It is definitely more, it's kind of like a crime Western film. It's set in the early 1900s. Basically, the Osage clan, Osage tribe, they settled on some land in Oklahoma. They found oil, so they became like the richest people in America, and white Americans ruined it. And they came in and they basically started marrying people in this tribe and then ended up killing them off and taking their land. And it's a brutally true story of what happened. And it is sobering. It is awful. The things that you have to watch. It is not like a fun movie. So it's hard to say like, oh, go watch this 3.5 hour movie. But it was 3.5 hours. Did not know it was 3.5 hours. Like I was completely engaged the entire time. Didn't even have to like step out for like a bathroom break. Just like was engrossed in the
His
film.
bladder was like, hold it in,
Hold it in.
Yeah.
It's got Leonardo DiCaprio and Lily Gladstone as the top two. It has Robert De Niro and Brendan Fraser, and it is just such a great movie. It really is. It's one of those things where the main characters aren't necessarily the good guys, and you don't really realize that until like 10-15 minutes in, and then you're did you guys ever play Assassin's Creed 3?
Yep.
Nope.
Basically like that whole tutorial, you're like learning how to be an assassin, and then you realize that like the tutorial you're playing as the bad guy. Like it has that same feel. Like it is like, oh no, like are these the bad people? It is just like a bunch of people will gush about this that are a lot smarter than I am. But I think this is going to turn a lot of heads when it comes to award season, and it's really just an awesome story. It's based on a book. This is just yet another reason why I need to start reading more. But it's all about true events that happened, and I don't know. I really liked it. I do think 3.5 hours, tough. It is a tough sell. I've tried to get people to go watch this. I don't think anyone has because 3.5 hours is a lot. So it's an Apple TV original. So eventually it'll be on Apple TV or Apple Plus or whatever they call it now. So bear with it. But it really is an awesome movie about something that I had no idea. But it's basically how the FBI was formed. Basically, they had all these reported crimes, and that's how the FBI started to be. Anyway, give it a watch if you're interested. But it's definitely going to be one of those things where you'll probably hear more and more about it, I feel, when Oscar season comes around.
It's always strange that, you say the whole 3.5 hour runtime is like is the factor that scares people away. But then so many people are
binge
willing
watch
to invest
TV.
Hours and hours of
I watched
series.
6 hours of Loki in a row.
Yeah.
And I know people are obviously, when you have episodes of a television show, that the arcs and flow is different, right? Because they're designed for their shorter runtimes. And so even though you're potentially watching, up to 3.5 hours in one session, that's not necessarily the same pacing or flow, right? And so I totally get that argument, because that is 100% true. But then at the same time, I feel like, as you said, if it's an engrossing 3.5 hours, like if it's something that pulls you in, or is like the story itself is also more suited for that, I feel like it shouldn't be a detractor, but that should also be a point of interest for you, right? To say, well, this is apparently such a great story, and it was designed to be told in this way. I should go watch it, right? It shouldn't be kind of a point to say, don't watch it, but, hold your bladder in, or hit the pause button, right? If it's on a streaming service, take the break when you need to, but try to watch it in its original form, because that's how it was meant to be, digested and consumed. And so I feel like there's a plus there. And because I'm also of the fact that, runtime for a lot of things doesn't really scare me. It's typically only the runtime scares me for when will I decide to start it. It's more, and not necessarily will I see it eventually, or will I see it at all, but when will I get to it, right? Because then you kind of got to get into that moment and be like, all right, I need to block off this amount of time. I'm going to power through it. And sometimes, right, in these busy lives that we live, it's kind of like hard to find that, good section to be like, all right, I got nothing else planned, let's get to it, type of thing.
I think this is like, I love listening to movie podcasts, and I love hearing like just like a weird debate about this movie, because there are people that are saying like this story should not be told by Martin Scorsese. Like he is like he's a white dude talking about these things that have happened.
Atrocities, yeah.
But I do think that Scorsese kind of treated it in a very respectful manner, in the sense of, if a lesser known director picked this up, it would not get as much attention. And like at the end of the film, Martin Scorsese like breaks the fourth wall and literally like reads the obituary of one of the characters that dies in the film, and was just like, this was never solved. Also, there was never a case that was open for this. And it just turns to credits. Like, it is just like him trying to show like he has like all this kind of like he's Martin Scorsese. Like, everybody knows him. His films are like automatic classics. He's done like 22, 23 films at this point. Everything that he does is like gold. And he kind of chose that to be like, hey, I have this platform, and like, we need to talk about this. We need to talk about this history. And so I think it's worth at least just like being part of that narrative. It's just really interesting. I feel like I haven't seen many films like that. But anyway, enough about that. Alex, you did your number 2, right?
Yep.
It was
Board
your
Game
convention.
Conventions, number 2.
So we're
Already
gonna
went into it. So shout out again, Board Game Convention. Let's go.
Let's
do
go.
it. So my
2024
number
is the year.
2 is semi-related. My number 2 experience has consumed the second half of the year for me.
Okay.
And that is the new Disney trading card game, Lorcana.
Ooh.
So this is my number 2.
Whoa.
This is my number 2. Alex, Alex, you're surprised?
I'm so surprised.
It's not number 1? I thought this was going to be number 1.
It's number 2.
I'm surprised it's on the list. Oh,
What?
honest.
Is it? Are you just gonna say my year was boring? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm just surprised that it like rose to the occasion.
Oh, it did. Listen. So Disney and Ravensburger came out with a new trading card game similar to Magic the Gathering called Lorcana, and it uses Disney characters in the gameplay. It's literally, it's like Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, whatever. It's a trading card game. It's a money sink. It's a time sink. It's really fun. I think it's really fun. I've probably only really played it like 20 times technically, if we really like think about it. But going off and like trying to get the cards, I don't enjoy that aspect of it, like it being very challenging to get it. However, it does appear prices are going down. They finally caught up to printing a lot of cards. People aren't scalping things anymore. Things were getting crazy. Like booster boxes that have 24 booster packs in them were selling for like over $300. Like, people were trying to spend that much on it when it normally retails for $144. So I have a complete collection of the first set of cards. I am missing only one card in the second collection. But I've been to game tournaments. I've been to board game stores to play Lorcana with strangers. I've done that like 4 times. I would have tried to play Lorcana at the board game conventions we went to, but it was so popular and they had limited seats that I was unable to like join any of the tournaments. But like, I'm trying to make a deck that is decent. Like, I'm not trying to drop hundreds of dollars to make the meta deck, but like, I'm making a deck that I would like to play. And even this week, I'm gonna go hang out with some friends and we're gonna play some Lorcana. So like,
nice.
And Matt, cracking open those booster packs, trying to see if you get a good card, like it. Do you
just
remember
gambling 101?
Yeah. Do you remember the feeling
boxes.
when you did Yu-Gi-Oh cards and everything? Like,
oh
yeah. So
nothing like it.
I've never gotten an enchanted card, which is the most legendary, this most rare card, like above legendary. Never gotten one. Alex got one. The most expensive one, or I don't know what the price is now, but it was like at a time it was going for $1,000 at one point in time. That
Did you
one
sell
card.
it?
He did not sell it.
Nope, I still have it. But any listeners out there, by the time you listen to this, I still have it. If you're interested, reach out, leave a comment down below. We can get in touch.
Yeah.
What is this, Craigslist?
Yeah. But yeah, honestly, Matt, the card game is so fun, and it's actually really easy to like pick up. I think
Okay.
it's a great time.
How similar to Marvel Snap is it? Or is it like
Not
not even
similar.
not
Not
similar
even.
at all? Okay.
Which is so funny because like one time I went to a thing and they're like, "Oh, do you play?" Making small talk with your competitor. They're like, "So you play any card games?" And I was like, "I play Marvel Snap." And then they were like, "What's that?" Like,
Did they just get up and they're like,
yeah, no, they were just like, "Who are?" But then that was funny is at another time when I was waiting for my next round to start, I saw one of the people just killing time by playing Marvel Snap, and I like looked at him. I was like, "I also play Marvel Snap," and he's like, "Yeah, it's a great game," and I was like, "Great game," and then that was it. That was the end of our.
and then you
discussion.
destroyed him.
No, I didn't match up with him, so I didn't play him.
Oh.
I'm not very good at these tournaments. I'm not gonna lie. Like I've not actually. I won twice against
Okay.
people that like didn't really know what they were doing, and so one could argue that I
What
don't
a
really know what I'm
bully.
doing. I know. I don't know. Whatever. But yeah.
That's awesome. We have a mutual friend who will remain nameless.
Yeah.
That we were working a weekend and they were like, "Hey, I'm gonna dip out. I'm gonna meet Tiffany and we're gonna go play Lurkana."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Enough said.
Yeah.
Say no more. See you later."
I'm not gonna lie, like, maybe if we do actually end up having some board game time, Matt, I can I can teach you how to play one round. Like, I can make a deck for you
Okay.
with my extra cards, and then
That
we can
sounds good.
test it out.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, my number 2. Christopher Nolan, Oppenheimer. Yeah,
I knew
it came out July. Barbenheimer happened. Oppenheimer, of course, was depressing compared to Barbie, but just like next
Also
level.
based on a true story, just like your other.
I know, just yeah, and it's kind of like, are we the bad guy? Like, is he the bad guy in this too? Did you guys ever watch this? Either of you watch Oppenheimer yet?
No, but I'm not gonna lie.
No.
I think this would be a great movie to watch with my dad. So like, I'm gonna try to see if I can find it anywhere. Is it like out anywhere? Like, can I rent it on Amazon for like $2?
You might be able to. Yeah, I think. Well, $6 on Amazon Prime.
Okay, that's not that bad.
It's still worth it. I think it's still worth it. So it follows J. Robert Oppenheimer, the guy that made the atomic bomb. It is basically like, I didn't expect it to be watching a guy just go through it. Cillian Murphy, who plays Oppenheimer, he is like, and I don't want to spoil too much since you're about to watch it, but basically you can see how conflicted he is.
The bomb.
Yeah, he made the bomb. We know what happened.
Yeah.
But he is a guy that's just about physics, like theoretical physics. And he is just trying to figure out a problem. And he's trying to solve that problem. But then he knows that if he solves the problem, people will die. If he doesn't solve the problem, somebody else will die. But like, should we be able to have that choice ourselves of like, if we solve the problem? And like, that sort of conviction that he had, and basically when he finished it, kind of like what was left in its stead, was just really good. I think Cillian Murphy is like by far probably like my best actor of the year. Like I think that this role was like, this was great. Like I thought that he did really, really well, just like portraying someone who had good in him, had bad in him, and was like a human and had conflicting feelings like throughout the entire experience. Like I just really enjoyed it. I think there were some unnecessary things. Like I think it was 3 hours, and I think they could have easily cut things to make it a little bit of a tighter experience. The last third is basically like a Christopher Nolan film. Like I love the last third. Like it like brought it home. The first 2/3 was a little bit different pace than what I'm expecting, but the last third was very much similar to like The Prestige or some of these other kind of like, you are trying to figure it out as Oppenheimer is figuring it out, and it's really good watch. Definitely watch it. Let me know what you think. But the one half of Barbenheimer, and I just loved it. Perfect July film. And now we're at it.
Number
one.
one. Oh
Number
my
How did we
one.
get here so quickly or so long? I don't know.
Like I believe our like 6, 5, and 4 took like an hour. And then
Yeah.
The last like 30 minutes we've just been rolling through the third and the second picks. So
Which
number
feels
one.
weird because I feel like it should be flipped, but
I feel like we do
There-
this every year, but we had some overlap and stuff. So
Yeah.
right.
number one, Alex, your number one non-gaming experience of 2023. What is it?
My number one non-gaming experience of 2023 is Canada. And no,
Canada?
I don't mean the country as a whole, but for Tiffany's birthday this year, we took a road trip. The family did to Niagara Falls and Toronto, and it was my first time visiting both places, and also let alone Canada in general. I've never been there. Good old maple syrup. It does hit different
Hey.
up there. They got that true syrup. Didn't get to see any bagged milk though, so I missed out on that. Did get to hear some Canadians say sorry though, so that was great.
True,
They actually
yeah.
do say it like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But stereotypes aside, it was just a great time. It's been a while since our family took a trip together. Obviously with me having lived in California for a period of time, and then also with COVID hitting, there were less opportunities there to do a whole family trip to a destination. And so when this chance arose for Tiffany's birthday to say, hey, are you willing to spend your birthday with the family in a car for 10 hours driving up across the border, getting stopped by border patrol and asking, what's your business here? And us,
Tourism.
in our four-door
Pleasure.
car.
I mean, travel.
Travel and tourism, and it just being a good time. We spent a day in Niagara Falls, just didn't spend too much time, but just was able to kind of see the area. We spent a couple days in Toronto itself, was able to kind of see the city and also take a few tours, both of the city itself as well as the bay tour, to be able to see the city from the water. And just these kind of like combinations of being able to see the Niagara Falls, this kind of mythic landmark that people always say, what are kind of these big things in America to see, and usually Niagara Falls is kind of one of them, being shared with Canada, that is, and also being to Toronto, one of the major Canadian cities, and kind of getting the idea to say, hey, it really does feel like America but colder. Not to say anything like I didn't feel the Canada like influence or Canadian influence on these towns, but there was the kind of culture shock a little bit, right? Obviously French being their second language or primary language, I'm not sure. It's just seeing the dual type of signs of like English and French was definitely interesting, whereas right in America we have everything in English and Spanish, so that just being kind of one difference, but still having that feeling of everyone speaks English here. Like, it's very easy to get around. It's very kind of, if you are a citizen, to be able to go over there, you're going to have no problems getting around. And just the overall time, despite it being cold, right? We went in the fall time, so I wouldn't always recommend that unless you love the cold. Then by all means go when it's chilly in Canada, or I guess it's chilly all the time since they're so far north. But it was good to see everything, to spend time with the family, and surprisingly, the drive being not that bad. It is 10 to 12 hours, right, to get to Toronto or Niagara in Toronto, but it's pretty simple, at least from where we live. So overall, definitely a great trip. Will be memorable. Who knows when the next one will be, but that's for the future. But for 2023, that's my number one experience. Shout out to you Canadians. Poutine, always good. Your maple syrup, even better because it's the OG.
How have you not brought up Tim Hortons?
I know.
Oh,
was about to say,
I
get some
completely forgot about
Timbits.
Tim Hortons.
How could
Shout out.
How could you forget?
I actually completely forgot
How
about
could you
Tim
cover?
Hortons.
You made us
Oh
go
my
to Tim
God.
Hortons every day. He made
Shout
us
out
go.
to Tim Hortons.
And after the first day, we went every day. So
I love Tim Hortons.
apparently not enough to remember.
That's going to be the stinger. Just, I love Tim Hortons.
It makes my heart so happy that this was your number one experience. I had a really great time on that trip as well. We lost a lot of money at the casino. I went to a bird paradise.
Oh, we don't talk about that.
Yeah. We went to a bird
We
paradise.
already know she has a problem with Lorcana,
gambling.
loot boxes,
Yes.
casinos right there.
Tim Hortons is fantastic. The dollar was very strong. So, like, everything we did there...
that was also beneficial.
We were like, it's a third of the price. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we just had honestly, it was a great time. You know, my parents are kind of cranky. My dad's a pretty cranky guy. My mom is can be very particular about things costing money. You know, like, just parent woes, you know? Like, those typical parent woes.
Sure.
So, rarely had any issues on the trip. Like, it was a fantastic trip. Like, it probably was the best travel trip I took all year. But that is not my number one experience for this year. So
yes,
my personal number one experience is that I finally completed my master's program.
There we go.
That
Nice.
took so much out of me. I started the program in 2020 during a pandemic. I took over 3 years to complete it. I just, finished all the requirements the week after Thanksgiving. I was able to go to PAX Unplug with freedom. You know what I mean? Like, no school assignments. I've spent so many years, canceling plans with friends because I have to write a paper. I have to do an assignment. Whatever, I had so many group projects where, like, a third of the group projects, these people let me down. I had issues communicating.
Typical. Like,
they ghosted me. Like, all these, like, school issues that you could have, or, like, in the modern era, like, I probably had them. I missed a deadline because I got the time zone wrong. Like, it was just a wild ride. The classic. I finally completed it. I will no longer ever do higher education ever again. 3 degrees is enough. I am so happy it's over. And I guess it was worth it. Yep.
Yeah, sounds like it's worth it. What are you talking about?
Yeah,
of course it's worth it.
I'm so happy. I don't know that I would say I'd recommend that experience to everyone,
Sure.
but I recommend finishing education. That is what I recommend.
Yeah.
So happy to be done.
And now you can be amongst the land of the living, and you can play games with us and do things. It's going to be great.
Yes, and spoiler alert for my part of the list for our next episode, when we talk about our top 6 gaming experiences, my year has been very much impacted by my last year of my schooling. So
you're going to have 6 experiences to talk about?
Sounds
knows?
like excuses.
Oh my gosh.
We better not get to next week and you're like, well, it's my top 4 experiences. No, you got to be making up to,
Okay, but yep.
Rock, paper, scissors,
Yeah.
and
Marvel Snap again.
Does it have to be board, or can it include board game? No, I'm just kidding.
Maybe. We might give you a pass. Give you a pass.
We'll see. But yeah,
No
I'm
cheating.
done. I'm done.
That's awesome.
Yay.
Well, my number one kind of seems cheap now, because it's not a whole country or a
it
third
may
degree.
be last, but it's not least, Matt.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
I want to know what movie like overcame Oppenheimer. Because I thought that was going to be your number one.
I thought so too, but there is just something about, I talk about some of these long films, 3.5 hours, 3 hours, long experiences where there is some fat to trim. Like there just is. Like Christopher Nolan, I'm so sorry. I love you so much. Probably one of my favorite directors. There was some fat to trim on that movie. And recently, within this past week, and maybe this is recency bias, and I'm okay if that is the case, my number one film that I watched this year, you all can watch because it's on Netflix. It's The Killer. It is David Fincher's new movie, The Killer, which has Michael Fassbender in it. I don't even know if you guys have even heard of this.
I've not.
So this
the
is
name
based...
David Fincher sounds familiar, but I don't know.
So you're definitely going to recognize his films: Zodiac, Seven,
Okay.
Gone Girl, the girl with dragon tattoos. Like, he is kind of like a masterclass. The Social Network. Like, he is a big name director, which also 2023 has amazing directors putting out films, and it kind of feels like we're just feasting right now.
Mhm.
David Fincher, though, have you guys ever seen any of his films? Any of those that I just said?
I have seen Zodiac.
Okay, Zodiac is like in my top 5 favorite movies of all time. Like,
Oh,
it
he
is.
also did Fight Club.
He did Fight Club, yeah. So if you look at some of like his pedigree, it is all about process. Like, he cares about the process. He cares about the story and how the process actually happened. For Zodiac, it followed like Jake Gyllenhaal and
Mark Ruffalo.
Mark Ruffalo and Robert Downey Jr. And it followed them in a newsroom, the process of developing news for a serial killer to try to catch a serial killer. Like, it was a very process thing. You learned a lot about how news actually gets made. And he just dives into those details. Seven with Brad Pitt and with
That guy,
Morgan
Matt.
Freeman.
Matt
What?
something, right? Never mind. That's a different movie. I'm thinking of a different
Like,
movie.
they are trying to catch this serial killer, and they are trying to get within his mind and the process of being a detective and going to these crime scenes and uncovering these things and following leads and what that looks like. You could pull that same pedigree into every single one of his films, and the killer follows a hitman. And it goes through the process of what a hitman is thinking and kind of his internal monologue. Like, if you look at the cast, there is a ton of extras, but honestly, speaking parts, there's less than 10. Like, Tilda Swinton is in this, but very minimally, and she's one of the best parts of this entire movie, and she maybe has less than 30 minutes of screen time. Michael Fassbender, majority of the dialogue is going to be internal monologue of him walking through kind of the minutia of being a hitman and waiting for the opportune moment and anticipating things and staying in control of your emotions and doing all these things and being very regimented. Like, it is just fascinating to watch. This is people that watch a lot of movies. I think this would be wild to them for the killer to be Oppenheimer and Killers of the Flower Moon. So
yeah.
It is kind of a wild thing, but for whatever it is, this was like the secret sauce where I've been thinking about this quite often, which I've just watched in the past week. That's not completely abnormal. But I just love that David Fincher, he could have gone really broad, but he just dialed it in and keyed in on just small things. It's based on a French comic from the late 90s, I think like 98. It got translated into English early 2000s, and he had this idea in like 2008. He didn't do anything with it for 10 years. He just was like, I'd like to, kind of format
Adapt
this like
this.
a book. Yeah. Like, he has 5 chapters in this movie, and those are the same 5 chapters he thought of in 2008 after reading that comic book. And so I just love it. I would love for anybody and everybody who has a Netflix account to watch it. It's definitely one of those things, like, it would have been better if they released it in theaters, because with this type of movie, if you're distracted, you're really not going to get a lot out of it. So, like, if you're checking your phone, you're not going to get a lot out of it, because it's not really about verbal. Like, there's not a lot of conversation, and it's a lot of kind of just being able to observe what's happening within the scene and kind of looking at Michael Fassbender's nonverbal cues and how he acts without actually using his voice. And I just really liked it. I really liked it. It was just that secret sauce. David Fincher, like, I think The Social Network is like one of his more overrated films, and people love it. Like, if you want to hear our thoughts.
I've never seen Social Network.
Ariel, friend of the show, me and her connected about The Social Network kind of being one of those like most overrated films of the 20 teens when we talked about the Oscars like 2 years ago. Go take a listen to that. So David Fincher's not always a hit for me, but I think this one definitely was, and it's my best film of the year, and could not recommend it more. So take a look.
I think I will. Last year, you recommended Severance season 1, and then I
Ugh.
binged watched it within like a month. So
It's so good. That's so good. I'm so ready for season 2.
same. I think I'm gonna try to check out one of these movies. It will not be Killers of a Flower Moon, but
Fair.
Oppenheimer and The Killer definitely sounds like something that I'd be interested in. I mean, Oppenheimer, yes. I'm bummed I didn't get to see it in the theater.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
before we go, I know we've gone long, but any just like top level, just shout outs, just shouting out their name into the abyss of honorable mentions that we didn't talk about. Because you know what? That Super Mario Brothers movie,
Honorable mention.
It's a 9 in my heart. I rated it a 9 on Letterboxd because, man, did I love that movie. And Barbie, right with it,
Yes.
loved it. So good.
Yes. So I actually gave the same thing, like Mario and Barbie 9s. But I adored them. I adored those movies. I want to shout out Lessons in Chemistry, the Apple TV show. That was also another show that Loki, I was watching every week. I was like, I need to watch it. I loved that they debuted like Thursday nights or Wednesday nights or whatever night it was. They were like showing up at 9 p.m. Absolutely watched that first night. Lessons in Chemistry, every Friday when it would release on Apple TV, I would watch an episode. I thought that was great. That's based on a book. I bought the book after I was so enamored with the first 2 episodes of Lessons in Chemistry. I've yet to start it or read it, but I plan to. What else honorable mentions you guys got?
So I haven't watched season 3 yet, but shout out to Witcher season 2. I really enjoyed it. You know, I intend to finish season 3. I know that'll be the end of Cavill's run as Geralt, at least. And that was just a continuation of how great the first season was. I know a lot of people liked the first season less because it was kind of having all the different timelines and stories kind of running parallel, but it wasn't clear to people that was the case. And with season 2 being a little bit more direct, kind of having all the stories coalesce was more traditional. I enjoyed it, because obviously I think Cavill does such a great job being Geralt, and also just them exploring more of the world there. And I'm definitely interested, and I forget the prequel series that came out this year that a lot of people hated. But besides that, Witcher 3, season 3, I'm looking forward to watching eventually, even though I heard it also kind of ends maybe in a little bit of a soft, quiet whimper. But a shout out to that, at least season 2.
Invincible, first half of the season's already released. Second half of the season starts January 4th. So it felt weird only putting it on a list when it's only half the season, but it's like more awesome Invincible. So by the time people are listening to this, the second half is like on its way. If you've watched the first half or the first season, you know it's amazing. So give that a watch. And with that, a chunky, almost 2-hour episode of our top 6 non-gaming experiences of 2023. Go ahead and comment below. What is your top non-gaming experience? What really just tickled your fancy, and what do you want us to check out? Like, share, subscribe, all those things. Hit the bell, whatever. Hit all the buttons that you can see, except for like the unsubscribe and the close out button. And with that, I'm Matt. That's Tiffany. That's Alex. Grandmaster Doug. Thanks for the tunes, and we will see you next time.
I love Tim Hortons.